Peace, and Black African Power. Welcome back to Author's Perspective. Uh, I am your host, Kofi Piesie. We have a special uh, guest in the house. First, I want to say ETM Hotel, do our Aku, do our Metcha, Fatmu Lafayette, Fatmu Riri, Fatmu Iwa Pele, Majuba Iba Ia Gungun, Majuba Iba Ia Gungun, Majuba Iba Ia Lakba, Majuba Iba Ia Lakba, Igungun, Kiki, Igungun. I always want to get honor and praise to the ancestors, because without the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. We are our ancestors. I also want to stand honor and praises to the true and living elders, according to an African perspective and from an African world view. The few that's in the chat now, I didn't have a chance to share the show, but please like the show. Peace, brother Herit, Shawn, Khalfani, Omar Reed, and our good brother Pure Black. Please like and share the show. Share the show with those that you think that may appreciate this information in this interview. Um, First, I want to say welcome, Miss Michelle Person. Um, Before we get started with the interview, can you give us a brief introduction of yourself for people that may not know who you are?
Sure. My name is Michelle Person. I am a children's book author and a principal and a former teacher. I write curriculums. I do professional developments for and workshops for parent workshops, professional developments in schools, public speak, and I am a mom of 3 beautiful children.
Right. Let me throw this on here. Now I got a lot of questions that I like to ask, and I like to share a lot of stuff that I think that a lot of people could benefit from, as well as me reading some of your stuff, and it kind of like it inspired me before we get into the show, like the series of books that you have. I think you got like about six publications.
Yes.
Publications dealing with the children, and we write books. Me and Kofi Piesie Research Team, and to collectively write scholastic books, and then individual myself and the other members write their own individual books, scholastic books as well. But we also ventured into writing books for kids. Me and brother Shawn, we have a children book that we did last year. I was supposed to do a part 2 and didn't do it, but we have I have a book called Kalawa's Trip to the Motherland in African Education and Music and Instrument, and Shawn has One Night Before Bed, and these are both targeting the kids, and I never did do my part 2, and you kind of inspired me to finish my part 2. I wrote half of the story for part 2 for Kalawa's Trip back to the motherland. I just never finished it, and you kind of inspired me to kind of go ahead and finish that, and actually kind of do like a series, because I wasn't gonna do a series on Kalawa. I was just gonna do a part 2, so I may do like a series of Kalawa Trip back to the motherland um, series. But we've been trying to virtue it into more with the kids that are writing like more scholastic adult books. And so we created something called Spear Masters Institution, and we have a project coming out next month called Spear Masters, a historical survey in the minds of African warrior scholars. This will be volume 4. We got 3 volumes out, and we mantra the spirit. So we got a spirit of Mossi. Volume 1, we got From Spears to Pen, and we got Spiritual Comeback. So this volume 4 is Spear Masters, and from the Spear Masters, we created, like I said, an institution which is going to be directed toward more of the kids. So we got a coloring book that's coming out, an educational coloring book. As they color, I created some characters. So as they color, the characters actually going to be explaining to them what they actually is coloring, going a little bit in detail, so they kind of learning what, as they color. And then we have a comprehension book that's targeting the teenagers. So we're trying to get more into the young kids as well as the teenagers. But every question that you know, the first two questions everybody that come on is I want to ask as an author, hold on. Okay, yeah, what got you into writing and how long have you been writing?
So, what got me into writing? I tell this story a lot of the time. I fell into this totally by accident. My youngest daughter was born 4 years ago. And at the time, her dad and I did not live in the same city. And he was very, very upset and concerned. He felt like, we lived too far away and that he was not going to be able to be an important part in her life. She wasn't going to know him. And I kept trying to explain to him that how far apart we lived didn't matter. That he was her daddy, and that she was going to love her daddy man like that, like that was going to be, the distance was unimportant. And so to that end, I for his birthday, he's notoriously hard to shop for, and I decided I would write him a book instead of trying to get him something traditional. And the story was about our daughter and him, and just the thing that at that point our daughter was I think like 3 or 4 months old, and just the things that they had already done together, like how he was there when she got her shots at the hospital, when she got her ears pierced, watching the first football game together, so it was called The Adventures of Kai and the Daddy Man. My brother-in-law is a librarian, and it was literally it was just a cute little book, like it was intended to be a gift, but I was proud of it when it got finished, and so I showed it to my brother-in-law, who was a librarian, and he was just dropping the stats on me, like, oh, it's so great that you did this, because there are no Black characters in children's literature, and 16% of the characters, or yeah, I think it was some like 8% of the characters in children's literature are Black. And so when he started dropping all the stats on me, at that point I was a principal, and I was disappointed in myself for not knowing or being more aware of these stats. And I did my own research, and then I reflected on books that I read when I was younger, and I was like, you know what, there were my favorite books were there are no Black characters. And out of all my favorite books, Judy Blume and Super Fudge and Ramona Quimby, Beverly Clearly, and the Sweet Valley High books, and the Babysitter's Club, all those books, those are all, I mean, those were series. They went on like hundreds and hundreds of books. I used to have them all. No Black people. And it was something I didn't really even recognize growing up, or until I really sat back and reflected on it. And so the educator in me, after I became aware, was like, yeah, I got to do something about that. And so I turned Kai and the Daddy Man into a book for all. And from there, Kai and the Daddy Man has grown into 4 books. We just released our 4th book, Kai and the Daddy Man Do the Holidays. And it's Kai and the Daddy Band celebrating Easter, Christmas, Kwanzaa, just going through. She's basically learning about everything in life. She's learning about for the first time, and she's doing it with her dad. Her dad is explaining it to her. Now, for me, we teach kids that authors write for 3 reasons: to inform, to persuade, and to educate. And so, and to entertain. And so my Kai and the Daddy Man books are strictly to entertain. They are just for kids to be able to open up a book, to experience, to read about somebody who is experiencing something similar to what they're going through, maybe get a chuckle or a laugh, and see a relationship reinforced that is often not, portrayed, a positive relationship between a Black child and their Black father. And that's not something you get to see often. But the teacher in me was like, all right, that's great, but I also need to try to educate these babies. So once I started writing the books, I was like, well, I need a different series with a male protagonist that actually educates people, when they're reading. And so my Nathaniel English series is my series where
we gon' we will get into, because I
Okay.
kind of want you to break down, because we're gonna go from your first release all the way down to your last
Okay.
release.
So that's the backstory. The backstory is I started writing as a gift. Some people saw the book and said you should consider doing this. There's not a lot of Black characters, and I said, you know what, I'm gonna do it, and that's what I did.
Okay. Now this is another question we ask everybody that comes on. Ask, and I think you might have mentioned that a while ago. What name a few of your favorite authors?
So I was, the standards when you're like, 8, 9, 10. Judy Blume was, I read everything Judy Blume wrote. Beverly Clearly, the Ramona books were my favorites. They were hilarious. They stand the test of time. You can read them, I think, to this day. Francine Pascal, and the Sweet Valley Twin and the Sweet Valley High books, those were favorites of mine. Ann Martin and the Babysitters Club, like all the popular, very popular girly books that were marketed in the, back in the day. I read them all. So those are all my favorite books when I was coming up.
Okay. Now, like I said, I want to talk about your before we get into the books and you explain the books. I want to kind of talk about your company, Just Like Me Presents.
Mm-hmm.
So, how did you come up with the name for the company?
So just like me, actually started out being Just Like Me books, because when I first started it was just books. But the name, and so now it's the Just Like Me Presents is we present lots of stuff. It's not just books, it's curriculum, it's workshops, it's the books, it's professional development series and all that kind of stuff. So it's Just Like Me Presents because we present a plethora of things to people. But the Just Like Me came from the aspect of the book, wanting kids to be able to look at a book and say, wow, that character looks just like me. That was important to me, that our kids be able to open up these books and be able to see people who look like them. There was a competition I did when I was first starting out. And basically what I explained was, for me, subconsciously, you don't really realize that you look as a child, even if you don't recognize it, for people who look like you constantly. You don't, it's not something you actively do, I think, but I think all kids look to make that connection with the shows they watch, with the things that they read. They try to make a connection so that they feel like that, it's a part of them, or that it was meant for them. And I know for me, that connection subconsciously was made via Sesame Street. And the Sesame Street was the only place that I saw people who looked like me. Specifically, the character of Maria, who I thought looked, the character of Maria specifically had hair like my mom. I did not, no, there was nobody else or no other show that I had ever seen where the character wore their hair like my mother. And so for me, I watched it religiously, and I loved Maria. And as I recognized that it was because Maria, it didn't look like my mom exactly, but her hair was like my mother's. And that was big for me. And that was why she was my favorite person on the show. And I think that kids, when they are experiencing the world, they are always actively trying to connect with the experiences that they are having. And they're looking subconsciously for things that look like them. And so Just Like Me, the name Just Like Me came out of my goal is to, when you come to Just Like Me, whether you're picking up a book, whether you are looking at some curriculum, whether we are doing a workshop, the things that you see are going to look just like you.
Okay. I got a question. You've been an educator. I was reading you've been an educator over 20 years. You taught for 12 years. You've been a principal for 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
And being in the educated field, myself, I went to school, and I was my goal was to become professor. I'm still gonna go back out. Some things happened. I ended up getting married, and then I got tackled with. I fell in love with writing books, and so that kind of hindered me from going back and finishing so I can get my PhD. But I wanted to go to school for. I wanted to And I actually could go now and teach for teachers. But right now I just got a whole lot going on, and I need a little bit more income, which I feel teachers should be paid way more money than they're being paid. But and I have something I call the school system. I call the school system the food. Everybody know if I speak about the school system, I always say the food system. And I say the food system is because a lot of, like what you're saying, a lot of kids, you know, can't relate to a lot of things that they're being taught. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of things that they're being taught, they're being taught about um, what the Greeks done, what the Romans done, or
Not and they leave out the part that the Greeks and the Romans got the stuff from from Africa.
right,
So
right, right. So they don't talk about Alexander the Greek going into to uh to Egypt and learning over there, and that's where you get the name Alexander Egypt from. And so they don't even talk about the temple of Mazion that was actually there in Alexander Egypt, where you had other Greeks that was coming in, and this was some form of a university where they was actually going in and they was learning about various things in the temple of Mazion, which you get the word museum today. But what I'm saying is that the dropout rate, it just, I'm speculating, it's just my opinion, I don't know. I believe that when it comes to us, and a lot of our kids not finishing school, because I know a lot of kids, um specifically where I stayed, that dropped out of school. You know what I'm saying? And I believe it has something to do with them not being able to relate to what they're being taught in school. They can't relate to some of the things that they're learning, so therefore they can't relate to those things. They can't like heavily get into those things because everything that is being taught to them, it is other people contributed to society, these great things to society. But then when, on the other hand, if there are something um, mention about them or people that look like them, it always resort back to one period of time, and that is around the late 14th, 15th century, when we talk about the Atlantic slave trade or the Atlantic kidnapping trade. So they go straight back to our story that deals with slavery, and then even now they're trying to convince the kids that slavery is was a might have been a good thing, because when I'm saying might have been a good thing or saying it was a good thing, that those people that look like us was actually primitive until they was actually kidnapped and brung and civilized, which that's not the case. So I'm saying, do you think that may have something to do with the kids not relating? Because you mentioned that relating to um what they're being taught. So a lot of our kids in this day and time is starting to drop out of school because they can't relate to what's being taught.
I think that a lot of our kids drop out of school for a lot of reasons. I think that definitely not feeling connected to the content definitely probably contributes to the issue. I think there are some other larger issues that contribute to our kids dropping out. But I definitely think that that our kids not having any connection. So what, even if you get a kid who's like, all right, I get it. I know I need an education in order to be successful. I know I need to stay in school, but yo, this is boring. You know what I mean? Like even a kid who kind of is on the fence, you get that kid in there, you present to them this information they need to learn. It's like, I'm only halfway wanting to be here, and you want me to learn about, Alexander the Great? What,
Mm.
what am I about to do with that? Like, why am I learning about Alexander the Great? So I definitely think it 100% contributes to it 100%. I think there are deeper issues that actually probably more strongly impact our kids not graduating, but I definitely think it plays a role. I think that you sometimes, you put some culturally relevant and engaging material in front of a kid, and sometimes a kid will go to class just for that. Especially when you get to high school, a kid will go to class, just for one class and end up going to the other classes by accident because they want to make sure they don't miss that one class that interests them. So you add all the other litany of things that are, that play a huge role in why our kids don't graduate, and you put on top of that the fact that the content is whack. That's just the straw that, that's that proverbial straw right there that's just about to break the camel's back. So most definitely, I think it contributes.
Oh, Sutek, peace, brother Sutek, Akandi, Uyani, Olawa. He said, should we give kids more learning alternatives that they are interested in?
Most definitely. I mean, and I know we're going to probably talk about this later on the night, but the traditional education since hey, chill. The traditional education system was not built for us. It was not, it's not set up for, it wasn't built with us in mind. When they designed it, we weren't even allowed to go. So then you have this system that was designed not for us, that we said, hey, we want to be educated too. And they were like, all right, so this is what we do for our people, for the white people. And if this is the system that you're going to have to learn how to work within. And so basically, like, they created something for them. We saw the benefit. Definitely there is benefit to the system. But the system, if we were building it ourselves, as with, most things that we do create for ourselves, it would probably be a more efficient and a system that worked better for us, as opposed to the system that we have. This system, we make it work for us. And so, and in that, there are parts of it definitely that don't fit us. There are parts of it that that definitely are not for us, and that are not cultivated to the things that we hold as important. The ways that we learn. So when you say, what if we just gave them things that there were more that the kids are more interested in? That's part of it. What if we taught in a way that speaks more to how children are developing? What if we, taught in a way that speaks, that gives students an opportunity to express themselves in the traditions and the ways in which we've expressed ourselves for generations? So it's not even so much about making sure that the content that they're being exposed to interests them. It's also about making sure that we understand who we're serving as a people, and then creating a structure that is aligned with those people. And the traditional public education system just doesn't do that, because it wasn't built with us in mind.
Right.
And that's true. If I had more books I was interested in, I would have done a lot more reading. I agree with that. That's why my company, Just Like Me Books, started out. I write 2 types of books. I only write 2 types of books. I know what I'm good at. I don't write books, science fiction books. I don't write, historical, for different genres and things like that. But I go out and I find authors who do. And that way, when you come to my website, you can see the books that I write, my purely entertaining books for students who are 0 through 7. And then you can see my books that are historical fiction-y for kids who are probably in grades 3rd through about 5th grade. But you also can find books where different kids can see different types of stories, different types of characters. Because you're right. If there are more books that cover more interests, students are more likely to pick that book up. That's where the whole idea of Just Like Me books came from. It's, if I'm already struggling to teach somebody how to read, they definitely don't read. They want to read about Lassie and Spot. They want to read about, something that's familiar to them. If I'm gonna make you do this, I gotta make you do it in a way that's interesting to you. And so 100%, books should more reflect the kids who are picking them up to read them. Because if they don't, they're not gonna want to read them. Stop it.
This one of our guys, man, that supports us, Pure Black, peace, brother Pure Black. He says, if I had one teacher who looked as good as her, I would have perfect attendance in our schools.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that joker there is a character. Now talking about your company, Just Like Me Presents. Like I said, and matter of fact, before we go any further, I did get, and I'm actually gonna order 2 more books either today, this late this evening or tomorrow. But I did get my book Nathaniel's English and The Life of a Panther, and I did get Nathaniel English and Leader and Revolution. And when I seen that word revolution, that just caught my eye. So I said I got to get this book here too. So I did get both of my books. I hadn't got a chance to look into it, and I just scammed through both of them, both of the books. But I'm definitely gonna get a chance to read them, and I actually got them for my stepdaughter, and then I got 2 more I'm gonna buy from you that I'm actually gonna give to my son. So my son, my 13-year-old son, can have it and read as well. But on the website, like you got a curriculum and you got a workshop, and I think this something. I mean, this is great, and I think something that I'm actually gonna end up signing up for, and you can tell the listening audience who is listening, and the people that may be viewing this in the archives. But I wanted to talk about your meet the author, because, like I said, we're gonna deal a little bit more. People kind of familiar when we do the author's perspective. We kind of walk through the whole thing, far as how to put a book together. The different processes of putting it up, publishing company versus self-publishing, the percentages if you go through these various companies such as Amazon, Lulu, Barnes and Nobles, Endgame, eBay, because eBay I didn't even know eBay does it now, but eBay, multiple companies. But so on your webinar, you have various training. So you got one that's called Meet the Author. Can you and on here I think it says through close personal contact with published authors, students and families will work to improve their reading, writing skills, and aspire to excellence. Then you got the bullet points. During the 60 minutes family session, participants will learn what an author does and how to become one. Discussion of which is I think is great and important, because that's why we created this show, is to show people, how to actually put a book together, because it's definitely important for people that look like us be able to write and tell our own story, because for so long there have been people that doesn't look like us that actually is telling our story and is not telling our story right. So it's important for us to develop the skills of reading and comprehending, and writing and producing various publications to tell it from our perspective, So that's very important. So and then discussing the importance of reading and the benefits of daily practice, explaining how to use 5 finger rules to identify and just just right books. Okay, just right books. Okay, you play on the words. Okay. Can you kind of what inspired you to come up with this webinar? Because we're gonna talk about the other ones as well, but there just that stood out to me the most, because that's definitely what we trying to do, far as help and show people how to read and write, and how to publish a book, and even inspire people by putting out these various publications that we put out. So can you kind of talk to us about what inspired you to create a webinar and create this first one, and we'll talk about the other ones in a minute.
So the program, no problem. So the programs that we create are things that I have a very unique perspective. I know what schools are looking for in terms of the kinds of programming that they're willing to pay for, the types of experiences children enjoy. And essentially, I wanted to create those experiences, but also obviously make sure that kids were experiencing things where the content and the books and the things that the schools are paying for, look like the kids that are being served. And so Meet the Author was one of the first workshops that we created. And the whole point is, right now in the educational landscape, the idea that kids have to learn how to read by third grade is huge. And there's a bunch of science behind it. And, if they don't know how to read by the time they're in third grade, it's the prison to school pipeline. But nobody's talking about the fact that the idea that you have to learn by the time you're 8 is not necessarily the most it's not the most developmentally appropriate guideline that we've created. It was just pulled out of thin air. And then if that's the guideline, then the fact that you've got all these kids with all these barriers against them before they even get to school. So the bottom line in all that is reading and passing these third grade reading tests. Most states at this point have either a third grade reading guarantee or a fourth grade reading guarantee that say the kids have to be able to read by a certain level at a certain grade or they can be held back. And so the Meet the Author was me deciding that parents need support to be able to understand that these laws exist. B, they need support in being able to figure out how they can help their kids at home meet these ridiculous standards that have been set by these people who are not educators but are creating these rules. And C, we want to make sure that kids understand that in addition to the importance of reading, that there are avenues that maybe they've never thought about. And if you see somebody and have close contact with somebody who's doing something that most of the people in your life that have never done, it might open your eyes to a different career path. I want to be able to go in and show kids a different alternative than being you ask your average kid what they want to be when they grow up, and they say your normal things are lawyer, doctor, teacher, because they come in kind of lawyer. It's because I think they hear it a lot on TV. But doctors, they go see doctors, like most kids do. They see teachers every day. They see police officers. They've heard of police officers. So that's another one that they think that kids aspire to be what they see. That's one of the things that we say all the time with Just Like Me books is that if our children can see it, they can achieve it. They see doctors, they see, teachers, they see police officers, they see firefighters. So they think they can be those things. They see basketball players on TV and they see, rappers on TV. They think they can be those things. They don't see authors. So in order for them to think that they can be that, they have to see that. And so I wanted to create a program where kids could be exposed to seeing that. And then the idea that, I can be that, as well as an option becomes within the realm of their possibility, but then also a way to support our parents as they're, trying to make sure that our kids can meet some of these rules and standards that are being imposed on our kids, in third and fourth grade. So it was a twofold reason to support the parents, support the schools, but also create a situation where our kids can see another option of what they might decide they want to be when they grow up.
Yeah, man, that's excellent. That's excellent. And you have another one, finding the fluency flow. And the description says some readers have difficulty reading smoothly, accurately, and with expression. In this workshop, families will work together to grow the skills necessary to become fluent readers, and which I thought also was excellent because, again, these are some of the same objectives that we have. So this is why we're putting out these comprehension books. That's why like I said, we created this year the Sphere Masters Institution. So in that Sphere Master Institution is going to be dealing with the kids and the teenagers. So we want to be able, and not even just for the teenagers when it comes to the curriculum. I mean, not the curriculum, but the comprehension books, because we have adults that read too and can't even comprehend what they're reading. So I just thought this was excellent, explaining the fluency is and how to access it, evaluate their child fluency level using the strategies presented during the session, sight words recognition, choral reading, repeat, what is that?
Repeated reading, choral reading.
Yeah, audio reading, and to prepare personalized fluency plans for their child. Upon succession completion, each family will create an auto recording, a set of sign words, and reading track. Can you kind of explain what was the inspiration and why you wanted to create?
So reading. So if you look on the for the reading, all the meet the author sessions and the reading sessions, reading is actually a bunch of different skills that you have to know and that you have to master all together in order to master being a reader. So comprehension is part of reading, fluency is part of reading, being a good writer is part of reading. And so each of those workshops tackles specifically a different skill that makes a person a student who to be able to be a good reader. So fluency is being able to read smoothly. If you can't read smoothly, it's going to be really hard for you to kind of comprehend what's on that page. And so so specifically, the fluency workshop is some strategies and some things that parents can do at home to with their kids to increase that fluency so they're reading the way that we're talking right now. Because if you are reading like this every time you see a passage, you're not understanding or taking in what that passage is about, which means that after you've read it and you've spent all your energy trying to decode it and read that passage, you're going to get to that comprehension, those comprehension questions, and you're not going to be able to answer any of them. And you're going to be frustrated because you just spent 30 minutes trying to decode and fluently try to understand what you just read. And now you want me to go back into that passage and answer these questions, man, bye, I'm done. Like, it's like, you just, so, understanding all the different parts that make up reading is why all of those different workshops came into play. Because parents tend to just think, well, I'm going to put this book in front of you, just read it. Reading is complex. It requires a bunch of different skills. And it's they all work together, and that's why those workshops are broken down like that.
Okay, man, like I said, man, that's excellent. That sounds like my son too back in the day. Like my son, he's 13 now, and I lived with my son up until he was 9. I think I ain't lived with my son in about maybe 4.5 years, and he seen his dad read all the time, buy books, read. So he would always emulate me, wanting to read. So I would buy him books. And I think at the age of 6, he was an exceptional reader at the age of 6 because, like I said, everything I did, my son wanted to do. And I would try to give him some tests on these things, and he would be like, "Son, I just read the book, Daddy. Golly, now you want me to go back?" He could read exceptional, but he just couldn't comprehend everything in the book. So I had to work with him along the lines, to help him understand and how to understand what he's reading. You know what I'm saying? Because I wanted to prepare him. Because I'm like, son, when you start getting more up there into school, you're gonna be happening. They're gonna be lots of times where you're gonna have to go read a chapter, and then you're gonna have to take a test on what you read in this chapter. So yeah, it's very important, man, to read fluently and understand or comprehend what you're reading, which goes to your comprehension check, which is another workshop. The ability to understand what we read is key to creating lifelong readers. It is a session, family. Will learn what good readers do and strategies to help students build comprehension skills. Families will be able to explain what comprehension is and how to access, demonstrate how to create and KWF. I talk about the KWL chart. Um, and I got a book called As I Learn, We All Learn. Sharing information with others help deepen your own knowledge. And I didn't mention it today, but every time I go live, that's our mantra over here. I created a phrase called As I Learn, We All Learn. And everybody know me by that phrase. And but so I created a book, and I got another book coming out soon. As I Learn, We All Learn. I can't remember the subtitle, but it's talking about business. So I'm teaching, I'm not a business guru, but I'm just going to show people with actually what we did in order to create a business, a publishing company, an online apparel company, a design and art company. So I'm just sharing, and how we was able to create all these different publications. So I'm just sharing what we did. But I talk about that KWL chart, and that KWL chart, I got exposed to it might have made a couple of years ago, maybe about 3 years ago. So I started applying the KWL chart to me. I start using that chart when I'm reading and start writing down the different things that it applies for you to use, and it actually helped me. I'm speaking for me. It actually helps. So I know if it helped me, it can help anybody else. So so I seen that, I said, okay, so she show you, and I even try to demonstrate and show people what is the KWO chart and how I utilized it, you know what I'm saying, to further my progression and comprehending, you know what I'm saying, and understanding what I'm reading. So that's wonderful. And then you have support students connections to text through predictions and work attack skills. Upon sessions completion, each family will create a reader comprehension cube and cutie catcher. So can you kind of talk about, that a little bit? I know I kind of went into a little bit, but you could expound.
I mean, it's exactly what you said. So in the comprehension book, it's just teaching parents how good readers. If you're I these are things that like I had to actually learn to say out loud to my students when I was teaching reading. Good readers do some things automatically in their head when they're reading. They are looking at the information, they are putting it together, they're making predictions while they read. They're making connections to other books they've read, to experiences the experiences that they've had. They're making connections to themselves, to other books, and then to the world at large. They are, but for a lot of us, those automatic things that I'm saying right now that good readers do, they don't come automatic for some people, and so they have to be explicitly taught. So the comprehension cube and the cootie catcher, those are just some really cute hands-on things that the kids can make to help them practice and reinforce the skill of actually actively asking questions as you read, stopping every couple of pages and saying, do I understand what I just read? Do I have any questions about what I just read? How does what I just read affect something? Can I connect something that I just read to something that I learned in another book? Or something about something. Can I connect what I just read to something that happened in my life? So those, when you can do those things, when you can actively think about the book that way, that's how you can tell you're comprehending. You are understanding and making those connections to what's being read. When you can say, oh, well, in this book, this happened. When last time I read a story and the wind started to pick up and the sky got real dark, that meant a storm was coming. I just saw in this book, they started talking about the temperature drop. They started talking about the wind blowing. I bet you a storm's going to come here too. And they're outside. So I bet you something bad's going to happen because they're outside walking and here comes a storm. Oh my God, let me turn the next page and figure out if I'm right and what's going to happen next. You're building that anticipation. Like that's comprehension. But if you're spending all your time going, the clouds got darker. The clouds got darker, and you can't. If you're spending all your energy decoding and you're not fluent, you can't even get to the comprehension because you can't. You're worried about do the words coming out of my mouth sound right instead of do the words coming out of my mouth sound right and do they make sense in my brain. So that's what the comprehension workshop is focusing on, the work that goes on in the brain while we're reading. The fluency workshop is skills to make the words come out smoother so you can do the comprehension work that goes on inside your brain.
Okay, man. Yeah, and if Shawn, you still on here, that KWL chart does work. He was giving me flack about that when he wasn't named, but it does work, man. That's an excellent tool to have. That's an excellent tool to have. So raising, and I'll just let you go in there. Raising a writer. Can you kind of talk about that workshop that you have?
So the Raising the Writer workshop kind of grew out of the fact that on state tests now, when we were in school, you could do a multiple choice test, and as long as you got 80% of the questions right, you were gonna pass. You know what I mean? There wasn't, like the Stanford 9, the Iowa test, whatever we took, the OGT, it was just circling in and some, you just any, meeny, miny, mo. So as long as you can make some good guesses and do some and answer some questions correctly, you're gonna pass. Those days are over. Like the way they have structured these tests now, if you are not able to, you can get every question correct on the multiple choice section of the Ohio third grade test. If you cannot write appropriately a response the way they feel you should be able to write in third grade, you will not pass. And that goes for all of the state tests. You can get every single multiple choice question right. And if you cannot take an idea and expound upon it and relate it to and use text evidence and cite and to take a stance and all of that, all of things, if you can't do those things, you will not pass. You will get a score that is not proficient. And so raising a writer is just that because they've added that as a requirement in terms of students being able to do that in order to be able to pass these tests. Parents need to understand what that means. And so that workshop focuses on strategies that you can use at home, ways you can get your kids writing every day, things that you can do to expand their writing, how to make them better writers, things to look for when they're writing. So that's where that workshop came from, is understanding that our kids have, and I'm not saying that it's bad that they have to write. I'm saying that the level at which they have to write sometimes I don't think is developmentally appropriate, but the rule is what the rule is. So because this is the system in which we have to navigate, I wanted my parents to be able to understand that system and be able to take some skills at home so that they can work with their kids so they can meet these standards and be able to not face any negative repercussions if they can't.
Okay. Then you have getting the data, know the data, and use the data. Now we big over here with data. We love analyzing data, reading data, trying to understand data, especially in when we with what's going on right now with the pandemic. You know what I'm saying, with COVID-19. So, but
that one is more for in schools. That one's not a parent workshop. That one's more for schools and teachers. Like teachers also often, and building leaders. We get a lot of data. You get your kids take a test that you get the scores back. You gotta figure out what it means. And we get data all year long. We're all constantly testing, constantly assessing. We're getting constant data all the time. So that's a session that I do a lot of times with teachers, professional developments and teams to, let's look at our data. Let's go through it, comb through it. Let's decide what are we looking at when we're looking at all, because data can tell you so much. It's almost overwhelming how much information you can get from data. So what I do in that workshop is work with people to figure out, all right, you've got all this data. What part of the data are you going to look at? And then what part and what actionable steps are you going to take so that you can take this data and do something useful with it so that you can see some immediate results. So that's usually that's not a parent workshop. That's a workshop that I usually do with administrative teams.
Okay. Now let's talk about this your curriculum. Now you have a curriculum called Meanwhile in Africa. Now I could read it, but I just go ahead and break down. Well, first, Meanwhile in Africa, why come up with that title and what inspired you to come up with this curriculum?
So the sub logo for Meanwhile in Africa is kind of like a play on, Columbus came, the pilgrims came, Columbus stayed, and the natives betrayed. So we know the story of how we got here. Plymouth Rock landing on us. We know that the pilgrims came over on the Mayflower. We know that they stayed here after Columbus came, he discovered the New World. The pilgrims came after that, and then we killed all the natives, and now we call ourselves Americans, and that's how we came to be here in this United States of America. Meanwhile, in Africa, there was entire civilizations, there were innovations, technologies being developed. There were, things that we, while all that was going on, meanwhile in Africa, there were tons of other things. Like there were entire civilizations, entire, scientific advancements, entire innovative ideas being cultivated in Africa that we never talk about. Like we talked about it a little bit at the beginning, we never talk about the fact that Alexander the Great and Aristotle and all those great, famous, great, Greek philosophers, they got their ideas after spending their 2 years, 3 years. They pilgrimed and they did their pilgrimage. They went to Egypt. They studied at those institutions, and then they took those ideas and they expounded on them. But you never hear that part. The story always starts from when they got back. The story never starts from like the beginning of their journey. There's like these big holes in their journey, and we never talk about that because meanwhile in Africa, this work was already being done. And so the concept of meanwhile in Africa came from the idea that I know the American story. I am required to teach the American story. I am familiar with the standards that teach my kids what happened here in America. But that doesn't mean that there wasn't also things going on in Africa. And the idea that the history of Africa started with the transatlantic slave trade, that's just not true. So I wanted to create a curriculum that spoke to the advancements, the innovations, the scientific discoveries, the culture, the civilization that took place in Africa before the transatlantic slave trade, during, and then even after. And that's what I did. So, the way it's a supplemental curriculum, meaning that it is created to be able to fill in holes that exist in the traditional curriculum that already exists. And you can use it no matter what socialist program you use in your school. This goes right hand in hand. So, for example, the first thing you learned in kindergarten and social studies is about maps. What is a map? Near and far. What else we learned in kindergarten? Near and far, and your different things about your neighborhood. So basically, and meanwhile in Africa, we do the same thing. We talk about the map, but guess what we point out on the map? We point out that we live here in America, and the United States is this big, and Africa is this big. But if you look at a map, it's the opposite way. So we point out like, hey, let's look at the map. Let's find where you live in the world. Find where you live in the United States on the map. Okay, great. You live in America. That's awesome. Now let's look at Africa. Let's look at how big Africa is. And we always talk about, well, why are we talking about Africa? Because it's the second biggest continent, and it's the continent where all human life was what came from. Like, so we want to make sure that we talk about where we live right now, but we also talk about where we came from. And so we always relate it back to Africa. We talk about when we talk about all they always in science and social studies and they talk a lot about when we talk about the Industrial Revolution. That's great, but guess where a lot of those ideas had already existed, came from, and just got again expounded upon. So that's the whole point of Meanwhile in Africa, is to explain to children that we don't, and meanwhile in Africa, we don't even use the word slavery until I think the end of second grade, and it's only used in like one of the units. And then in third grade, we talk about the idea of who really discovered America. Because obviously in third grade, that's when you're learning about the Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria, and like they came over on the and they came from Spain, and the world was flat, and Columbus figured it all out, and yeah. And then we say, okay, here's why Columbus was famous, because you got to know who Columbus is. Everybody gives him all this credit. But let's talk about, do we really think he should get the credit? Because at third grade, you can start to think critically and look at, okay, Columbus's own journals reference Black people. The words that Columbus was taught when he got to America and saw the gold-tipped spears, well, those words are the words that they learned in West Africa. That was the Mandinka language. So, how did there was no post office in 1492. There was no mail. There was no internet. So how did those words get to a place where he just discovered, unless those people who brought those words had already been there before he got there? Like, those are the types of conversations that we start in Meanwhile in Africa. Like it. So, let's talk about let's talk about what you were taught, and then let's fill in some of these holes to make you think critically about the information that you're being fed, in a way that's developmentally appropriate for kindergartners, first graders, second graders. And then the other part was, I just got tired also of the idea that Black history, like you said, was about slavery, Martin, Malcolm, and Rosa. And then Barack, Barack has now gotten added into the, you want to talk about Black history? There was slavery, there was Abraham Lincoln, there was Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks, and then there was, and Martin, and sometimes Malcolm, and then Barack Obama, and we're all good. And so, I wanted to make sure that they talked about Haile Selassie, and then we talked about Mansa Musa, and we talked about Queen Nzinga, and we talked about all those people that existed, all the things that they brought to the culture, and how they impacted the world we live in now. So that's where Meanwhile in Africa is came from, and that's what we do with that program.
And I also think that is a great curriculum, because that's why I have a problem with the school system, is because, like I said earlier, they blot out all the information pertaining to us, and starts with 1492. And they don't tell, and and they make it like we was primitive people, and we ran around eating each other, and running around with bones in our nose, and having sex with all this foolishness that they that they have spread, all this propaganda. So that's why I had a problem with it. And I believe that if our people, because I notice with the people that I surround myself around, and even with this conscious community / social media community, a lot of those people begin to become inspired and motivated once they begin to learn about actually who they are, and actually what they did, and actually what their people actually contribute to society. So once they learn about all these things that our people did, that's a tool that actually motivate them, because I believe that we're learning about someone else's culture and learning about how great. And I understand when another group of people conquer another group of people, the conqueror gonna always write his story as their people was the great, they did this, that, and the third. So when you're learning about someone else's culture, and then when your culture is mentioned, it is always derogatory. It is always something that was, not appreciated or unvalued. So, so I believe that if you teach them that therefore they came for nothing, therefore they contributed nothing, then therefore they think they are nothing, meaning that they were always, like now, most of the people will gravitate toward the people that they learned about, meaning that, okay, well, these group of people in school, I learned they did this, that, and the third. They contributed so much to the world. These people are highly smart. So
Correct.
therefore, I'm going to listen to them before I listen to the people that look like me. Mm-hmm. So I think it's very important for us to teach our kids about the things that happen in Africa. I'm just like you said, and over here, we don't sensationalize over here on Kofi Piesie Research Team TV or Mossi Warrior Clan. We don't do that. We give you the good and we give you the bad, because we're not saying that Africa was a great utopia, because we are human. We all fight among another. You know what I'm saying? Should we fight with our brothers and sisters all the time? Mm-hmm. We disagree with our mothers, and fathers, all the time sometimes, because we think we right and so forth, and we're prone to make mistakes down the line. But our ancestors contributed a lot to society, and I think that if we're taught about those great achievements, that they did because they were innovators. You know what I'm saying? They was innovators. So they innovated a lot of the people, like you mentioned Aristotle, you mentioned Alexander the Greek. You know, you know what I'm saying, they inspired these guys that actually coming to Africa, and not them. You had other people in that area and after them that actually came into Africa trying to learn, you know, a lot of these things that these our people in Africa was actually doing, but they don't tell them, you know, they don't tell the kids about that. They don't teach about that in the school. So I think if that was taught in the schools, then, you know, I think we will have more people that will stay in school. I think we will have more ownership, you know what I'm saying, instead of people wanting to go work for the people that they learned about. I think we'll have more um, generational wealth passed down in our culture, because we don't, those things we don't have. I know we see a few of the actors, and we see a few of the basketball stars and a few of the rappers that, you know, that has built some type of generational wealth, but man, that's a low percentage. You know what I'm saying? That's a very, very low percentage. So I think what you doing is that is a great curriculum to have.
Oh, thank you.
Kids about that. So I applaud you, you know, on doing that. And all these things that we're talking about is on her website. That is on justlikemepresents.com. www.justlikemepresents.com for people that are interested in you and your families taking these workshops and even taking this curriculum, which is a social study curriculum. And that curriculum is called Meanwhile in Africa. Before we get into the books, and I'm not gonna keep you too long, we can kind of go through the books real quick. Can you tell them about the prices, like far as your workshops, far as the
So we do the workshops in general are they're our workshops, and they're $500 for an hour. There are some of them are series. If you book a whole series, you get a discount. You could do all of them standalone, each one standalone. But if you book like a series of 4, you get a discount. Meanwhile in Africa is there are different options for that. You can do the online parent webinar that explains what the program is, and then you can sign up for the class. And we have a lot of people that parents who just do it at home with their kid online. And you sign up for access, and you get access to the curriculum, and you work through the videos and the workshops online. We do some workshops in the schools. We have a workshop series that we do with the parents and the schools, because the other thing that Meanwhile in Africa has is an entrepreneurial component. The goal being that we take the information that we learn from the past, and that we can create our own future. And so we're really big on creating critical thinkers and entrepreneurial mindset. And so we have a parent series that we do in schools where parents come in with their kids. We do a little bit of history. We learn about the people, the places, why Africa is important. And we also couple that with some entrepreneurial activities, what it means to be an entrepreneur, how you become one, sample businesses that the kids can end up doing. So we do that with the program as well. So that's I think a 4-week series as well. Then we have another section of workshops that we do where we actually work directly with the kids in the classrooms with their teachers that don't involve the parents at all. And that's a more intensive workshop that we do with the kids. So all of those workshops, all the information are on our website. We can do virtual as well as in person. So if anybody is interested, definitely hit us up, and we can talk about coming out to your community group, your parent group, your school. If you're interested in just doing something for you and your child, go to the website. Those options are there as well. So those are the workshop portions. But the books, you want me to go through all the book titles and kind of what they're about?
Yeah. Let's start with your first one. I don't think that it's not. Is it still in print, or you done took your first one out of in
All
print?
the books are there. I should change the cover. I changed the cover art. We went back through and we republished it using different cover art. So our first book was The Adventures of Kai and the Daddy Man, and that was a book that started it all with Kai and her daddy, and their adventures with her as a little itty bitty baby. And from there, we went to the King of Video Games, Nathaniel English, and the King of Video Games. So at that point, I had my book that I wanted to entertain kids with, and my book that I wanted to teach a little bit with. And that book is a little boy is playing video games. His mother is, saying, "Oh, you're trying to be like King Mansa Musa," and he's like, "I just want to win. Who's King Mansa Musa?" And mom kind of gives him a lesson on who Mansa Musa was, and when he lived, and the types of things that he accomplished. And then I think we did the order, if I'm remembering correctly, was the Kai and the Daddy Man, the Adventures of Kai and the Daddy Man. Then it was the King of Nathaniel English and the King of Video Games, Story of Mansa Musa. I think we did Nathaniel English, Life of a Panther at the same time. And that was the story. Basically, Huey Newton, you don't hear about him. He created a great organization with great goals. He fed his people. He gave free breakfast. They have a school. Those are things that's what they tell us to do, right? They tell us to go out, get educated, go back to our communities and give back. This man did that. So let's talk about him. So that story is the same thing. The story of Nathaniel comes home and his mother, and he helped out at school. He's telling his mother about how he helped out. His mother's telling him, "Oh, you sound like, you were a regular Huey P. Newton." And he's like, "Well, who was that?" So mom is just giving him, just dropping knowledge and telling him more about who Huey P. Newton was and the things that he did. Then we went back to Kind of the Daddy Man, and we did The Adventures Continue. At that point, when I wrote that one, Kai, my daughter, was getting older, so she and her daddy had done some different things. She had learned how to wanted to dress herself. That was a big thing. She had thrown up all over us a couple of times. So when she got sick, so that was a big thing. So we did a couple of stories about kind of Daddy Man and what she likes to do. Then I did what probably was I think my best book, and also the book that took me the longest was Nathaniel English and Leaders of the Revolution. And that was the one that you got. That's the story of Toussaint Louverture and the Haitian, the first and only successful rebellion in the Western Hemisphere. Where basically Nathaniel again is complaining about he can't stand the lunches at school. His mom is like, "Well, why don't you be like Toussaint Louverture and do something about it?" And he's like, "Well, who is that and what can I do?" And his mom explains, well, he was he decided that he didn't want to be a slave. He got some people together, they organized. He's like, "You want me to rebel?" And his mom is like, "Yeah, I want you to stand up for yourself." And he and his friends, they do. And ultimately they stand up because they want better lunches at their school, and they do it as they're learning about Toussaint Louverture and his journey, and through to make sure that he stood up for himself and his people. And that's how that story came together. And so then the last book is right now is Kai and the Daddy Man. They do the holidays again because Kai at this point has experienced several holidays. So we wanted to talk about her experience and how she learns about each one of those with her daddy. So those are all of those are the books that I have personally written, and on those are all the Just Like Me books. On the Just Like Me Present site, there's also the Just Like Me pick section, where authors that I work with, where they, because again, I just write those two types of books. I am comfortable. I've spent most of my career with lower elementary students, so I write for lower elementary students. There are people on my Just Like Me pick page who write for different types of students, write different types of stories, and those books are there as well. But those are my 6. So the 3 Kai and the Daddy Man books and the 3 Nathaniel English books.
Okay. All right, and with that, you talked about the 4 different reasons to entertain, and most authors, write to entertain, to explain, or to inform. to persuade or to express an opinion. So you got one section of book for entertainment, then you got another section for what to inform or to teach. Because you
Right.
say, okay. Okay. So, and I see that you were consistent. Like you dropped a book almost every year, but no, yeah, you did every year. I can say self for 2009, your first
Yeah,
book.
but that's what I dropped 2 books in 1 year at one time. Yeah.
Yeah. So I see you was consistent from 2007 to 2021, which you tie in the Daddy Man do the holidays, which you talked about, which was published 2 months ago.
Yeah.
Which came out 2 months ago. Yes, you've been consistent, and that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to stay consistent with putting out publications for the people, man. So all right, with that, your 6 publications. Now let's talk about did you go through a publishing company or did you self-publish these books? Now the first publication I seen that you did, it was, I don't know if you went through a publishing company, but I seen Lulu on it. Ever since I, been doing this, and especially since we started the publishing company, same 2 different brands publishing, I'll go through the books and I'll look and see who is the publisher, who did they go through a publishing company or what site this was published on. So I seen the one with the first one published through Lulu, if I'm correct. If I'm right, did you go through a publishing company and they published it through Lulu?
No. So what happened was the first book, I actually had somebody ask me the other day and sat down with me. I know you told me, Chill. So I had a guy sit down with me like the other day and asked me to walk them through the whole process. And what I realized, it's been a journey. You learn a lot on the journey as you do it. And so Lulu, I've done independent publishing the whole way through. I had mentioned that I wanted to write a book, ironically, and I am Facebook friends with my high school English teacher. And my high school English teacher, he private messaged me and he was like, do it yourself. Don't pay anybody any money. He was like, I did one. And, he published a book of the history of his high school his high school football team that won the championship. And he was the captain or something like that. But he was like, he's like, I print them myself. I create them myself. And people buy them and I get all the money. He basically, he put me up on game from the minute I started. And so the one thing I knew from the door was, do not give anybody any money with them promising you that they're gonna, get you your book and you pay them $1,500, $2,000, $3,500. And I got that gem from my high school English teacher off the rip. So thank you, Mr. Belden. And once I knew that nugget, the rest of it just became research. So I didn't use Create back then. CreateSpace today, CreateSpace no longer exists. It's now Amazon KDP. I didn't like CreateSpace exactly. It had like a bad rap. So I actually did a little bit of research and found some places that I could publish that didn't require upfront money, but that just weren't CreateSpace. So Lulu was the first place that I did create. So like I told you, Kai and the Daddy Man has actually had a couple of editions, essentially. The first edition was a very small, short book. And I actually went with Lulu because Lulu would print. My book was very short. And one thing that I tell people all the time, the average industry length for a book is 28 pages. My first version of Kai and the Daddy Man was not 28 pages. And so Lulu was one of the only publishers I could find that would print a book that was less than 28 pages. So I went with Lulu. But as I created more stories and refined Kai and the Daddy Man, I realized that Lulu was not the cheapest option in terms of printing my book. And so that's when I went over to Ingram, and I've been with Ingram ever since. So no, I completely independently publish. And all of my books, I write them myself. I find my own illustrators. I find my own layout designers, my book designers. I do my own layouts. I find my own editors. And once my file is ready, I submit my file, or I have them submit the file to Ingram. And the book goes out on all the. Don't let anybody tell you should pay me X amount of dollars to. Nope, you can do the whole thing. Now, I have gotten to the point where it is time consuming. And if I trust you and you have a reputable company, I will pay you to do it because it is very time consuming. So you just have to do your research and make sure that the person who says they can do they can take your manuscript and turn it into your actual finished product book. That they know what they're talking about, that they are good at what they do. And because every part of the process honestly requires you to be an expert in that specific part. Like your editor has to be an expert editor. Your illustrator has to be an expert illustrator. Your layout person needs, you know what I mean? Like you can't just have somebody who says, well, I'm pretty good at Adobe, so I'll hook you up. It's not how this works. Not if you want to sell it, not if you want to sell your book. So I have learned a lot since I started. And I do independently publish my first book, my first iteration of Kind of the Daddy Man, yes, was through Lulu. But what I have found is the Lulu prints for a little bit higher than Ingram. So I go through Ingram right now.
Yeah, Lulu is definitely, it is definitely high when it comes to your author's copies. For people that may know what your author's copies is, which we talked about that before. The author get the books cheaper than what we set the price for. So
Correct.
the print the book. So we talked about that before. The printing of the book, the percentage of the book. So the print the book is actually what we're talking about. It's definitely higher. I can attest to that because we started out with KDP, Amazon, and we have eventually moved on to Lulu, and we moved on to Lulu once we started the Same Tree Different Branch publication, and for the sole purpose of Lulu have a bigger reach than KDP. And what I mean by a bigger reach than KDP is that a lot of people, I don't care, we don't care anything about that when it comes to our publications being on these various platforms, but we do have people that like to have their books on Amazon, that like to have their books on Lulu, like to have their books on Ingram, that like to have their books in Barnes and Nobles, Target, even in bookstores in the UK. Like the publication I just put out 2 months ago, The Beautiful Lessons about Kimoyo. If you type it in, man, it's all over. It's on eBay, it's on Ingram, it's on Target. It's in Target, it's in Barnes and Nobles, it's in Amazon, it's in a whole bunch of places in the UK. It's in a couple of places, small places, other places that's here. So it's in a lot of marketplaces. So that's good if you want your book in these other different marketplaces. Lulu is the place to definitely go when it comes to that. But even when it comes to that, when we go back to the percentage, when we talk about KDP and we talk about Lulu, we talk about Barnes and Noble and Target and all these other places. Now you're giving up a high percentage because even when you deal with KDP is a 60-40 split, but it's not a 60-40 split because you're not even taking in the account of the printing cost. The printing cost is not added into that. So it's a little bit lesser than that. So they're getting almost, you can say almost 70%. So it's like almost like a 70-30%. And that's about the same when it comes to Lulu. Barnes and Noble may be a little bit different than that, but they're still getting a bulk. Their percentage is definitely higher than your percentage, even when you're doing all of the work yourself. So you mean to tell me I did everything myself and I still got to give up the highest percentage? And the only thing y'all doing, but the only thing that they're definitely doing is putting it on their marketplace, and then putting it on their marketplace, and then printing the books out for you, and sending you the books, or even printing them on demand as people buy the books. But you have people that actually, want, like I said, want them on all these different spots for bragging rights, and that's cool too. But I want 100% of my intellectual property. So we did that, but we sell our books on our KofiPiesie website, and now our publishing company, Same Tree Different Branch Publishing, and we self-publish all our books. But we created a publishing company because, like you said, some people don't have the time to edit a book. Some people don't have time to do the layout for the book. Some people don't have time to organize.
Forget the time. I don't know how to lay out a book. That's not. I'm a teacher.
Right.
Like, I don't know how to do
Right.
that.
So it's very time consuming when it comes to all these things. Even some people don't know how to actually take them and convert files. How to actually set the fonts up where they're actually corrected so they won't be rejected when they go in review, or how to get it on the global network. Certain things that you have to have in place in order to do it. The process of uploading, if a cover is denied, if you don't know the dimensions of the cover. So there's a lot of things that go into creating a book. So we learned those things on our own. Like you said, we learned a lot of this trial and error. Like I said in the interview with Chill, we had people that we tried to reach out to that said, man, all we got to, man, just hit us up, and once we hit these individuals up, there was crickets, there was no response, or it was like in a sense of we was bothering certain people. So we just learned along the way. We just learned how to do everything along the way. A lot of it was headaches. I got a spot in my head, and that spot in my head, it done got thinner because I done stressed out so much trying to put the books together. But we created a publishing company because we wanted to be able to have a service for the people that doesn't have the time to actually do these things, because I'm telling you, it is very time consuming. I was just talking about yesterday. I was telling some of the brothers, because we went live just last night, and I was supposed to have been finishing a chapter for one of my brothers, and I didn't finish because I was telling him I was so exhausted. I thought I may well have to go to the hospital because I couldn't get out of bed, because I'm working on 4 projects at the same time. So it's very time consuming when you're trying to do things and juggle and work on things. But also we created it too because, like you said, you went out and you got and we did the same thing. We reached out, and once we learned who did what, this, that, and the third. So when we wanted a book cover, we was privy to have someone that used to be a part of our group. He would do it. So he would do the book covers. But then when me and Shawn did our children book, we reached out to a brother that one of our brothers, he's definitely a brother, he's a member in one of the groups I'm a part of, me and Shawn, the Session Ma'ani Meta Nature, where we focus on the Session Meta Nature, what y'all call the hieroglyphs. We learn how to transliterate and translate the glyphs, and to study the language, which is called the Running Kemet. So he does artwork and graphic. He also done the design for our Mboka. So we have a apparel company, Family Mboka, Connected Apparel. Mboka is a Wolof word that means family, and we have family in the Gambia, in the Senegal area where we partner with. That we created a scholarship for kids to go to schools, the Gaia Journal Skills Academy, and also as well have 2 of our publications in their library in the school over there in Africa. But we created a one-stop shop because we was getting art and graphics and book covers over here. We was getting somebody to edit the book, which is wasn't all they was doing was running it through a program, and they not actually doing what we actually doing now. We is reading the whole manuscript. If you give us the manuscript, we are reading your whole manuscript. We got a program we run it through too first. And then after we run it through and we do certain things to it, we don't edit the whole thing through the system. Then we go back and do a second level of editing, but we read the whole manuscript. You got a lot of people that's not reading the whole manuscripts, right, doing another second level of editing. We also do ghostwriting too, but that's come with a whole nother price if you're talking about ghostwriting. But not just only that, the layout of the books, all these things, we reaching out to people. So we said we was going to create a one-stop shop. So if people wanted to, they didn't have to reach out. And then we encouraging people to create or let us build them a website. So once we build you the website, now you can get 100% of your intellectual property. We can get you on these other marketplaces. If you want, we'll definitely get you on every marketplace that I named plus more, and even get your books international in these other marketplaces in the UK. But the important part is to own 100% of your intellectual property. So let's build you a website. You get your books, and then you sell your own books off your own website where you're able to get your own intellectual website, because I did have I did was pushing non-publications, but I understand that a lot of people don't have the time. Like, I talked to so many people in the past when they seen us creating these things, they like, we don't have the time, man, to do all the stuff that I was trying to tell them to do. So I was like, well, let us create I said, well, dang, we're gonna create a one-stop shop and create a service and create a cheaper service than anybody else out there, so we won't be breaking the people's pocket, and we can do everything, and we don't have to reach out. Even though if we can't do it, we have a company that we outsource to, but everything we do is which is in-house. And this is just but like I say, self-publish your own books. If you can self-publish your own books, it doesn't really, where it may cost you if you have to go and get things from other people for as arts and graphics. And if that's the case, hey, come right over here. We do arts and graphics as well, book covers and all those things as well. But also with that, I wanted to ask you, and we finna wrap the interview up because it's coming. We're coming at the end mark. I want you to, and I think you did talk about what was some of your what is some of the challenges being a writer? What were some of the challenges that you faced going through your process of creating these books? Did you have any challenges?
I mean, the writing kind of just flowed. The biggest hurdles for me was at the once the is that I'm telling you about the hurricane? Yeah. The biggest hurdle for me was just figuring out this process. Like after I had the book was done, I just had no idea what to do next. So all the things you just talked about in terms of like the things that you figured out how to do in your one-stop shop, something like that would have been extremely helpful for me, because like that was the hardest part isn't writing the book. The hardest part is putting it all together and getting it out there. And that was the biggest challenge. So that for me now, and it's crazy. Like once you know it, it's like, it's actually not as hard as a lot of people think. But when you don't know and you have no idea where to begin, that can be overwhelming. So that was probably my hardest part.
Yeah. After coming up with the ideas, writing the chapters, editing, putting the book together, publishing it, what did you learn about yourself? So basically, I'm just asking, through the process and each step that you took with these publications, what did you learn about yourself?
I learned that, believe it or not, that I'm an entrepreneur. I never thought that I was. My daughter's father is actually a serial entrepreneur, and he used to be. When you're not an entrepreneur, when you are comfortable with your 9 to 5, and when you enjoy that security of that paycheck, and it's hard to be with somebody who often is wanting to take risks and fly by the seat of their pants and bet on themselves. And so for me, what I learned was I'm actually very entrepreneurial myself. I just had to be entrepreneurial in my lane. So I found my lane and realized that within my lane, I kind of want to do my own thing too. I think for me, he's entrepreneurial and big in real estate. And for me, real estate has never been a passion of mine. I dibble and I dabble. I'm actually a licensed realtor. I don't love it, but I am a licensed realtor. Through his influence. But it was never a passion. So whenever we were talking about like what we were going to do and plans and this and that, it was like, I was torn. Found is that when you find the thing that you're passionate about, you actually will find out that you probably are an entrepreneur as well, because that's what I like. I don't want to do nothing but my own stuff now. But obviously my stuff, it's not flipping houses like his is. It's not doing realtor like his is. Mine is creating educational content. I want to create educational content. I want to push stuff out there. So that's my entrepreneurial lane. So just got to find your lane. I learned that I was an entrepreneur and I didn't even know.
Yes, indeed. And Hard work. I'm part-time entrepreneur, but I'm trying to turn it into me being a full-time entrepreneur and coming off my job. You know, if I can work hard and help somebody else get generational wealth, why not do it for myself? Work hard. That's why I'm half dead all the time because I'm continuing to work. I'm trying to continue to master what I'm doing, and I'm continuing to try to put out various things so we can have a definite track record, so people can come and do business with us. Okay, well, these brothers are doing quality work. These guys are doing some great things. Okay, we're not, let's, I'll give them a chance. So I'm definitely trying to become a serial entrepreneur. My last and final question is, and I ask everybody this: can you give any advice to any up and coming writer?
Mm-hmm. Just do it.
And you,
I I just I ask that same question. I interview authors on my Facebook page all the time, and that, I mean, that I say that all the time, and so do the people that I interview. I hear it over and over again. Just do it. You got a story in you, write it, and figure out the rest. Do the part that you can do right now, without, and do that part. And once you do that part, you'll figure out the rest of it. You'll figure out the rest of it. Just like we and I just both talked about that. Like we had these stories, we wrote these books, and we figured out everything else. You'll figure out. The information is out there. Google works. Google it. Like, like it's a, so like that would just do it. Like Nike says, just do it.
and that's crazy. Like that's just a simple answer. And you are our 11 guests for the author's perspective. We started the author's perspective late last year,
Mm-hmm.
and just about every author said the same thing. Just do
Mm-hmm.
it.
Just do it.
Just do it. Yeah, and that's right. Just do it. And that's because prior to January of 2020, me
I think.
and the rest of the brothers, we thought it was hard to do a book, man. And we had been doing presentations on our channel for years. And people was like, if you do presentations, you can do and put a presentation together with all these slides of information and sources and images and stuff. You can do a book. So
Yep.
our brother T'Challa Bungara, who's also a part of the Kofi Piesie Research Team, he actually came up with the name for our first volume, Spirit Master. He actually, with that title and his angle, it actually inspired us. And we actually, just like you said, we just did it in January. And then in May the 28th, we put out our first publications. And from that first publication, we have now 8 publications since January of 2020. So less than
Wow.
a year and a half, we have like 8 publications, and we got quite a few more lined up that is in the chamber and almost ready to go. Like I said, we got one coming September. We're gonna have to meet tomorrow to actually iron out the release date for our Spear Masters, Historical Survey in the Minds of African Warriors, Scholars Volume 4, which will be released. So, and even talking about that, if y'all hadn't got any of the other publications, please go to Kofi Piesie TV and get Spirits of the Mossi, Spirits Volume 1, from Spirits of the Pen, Volume 2, Spiritual Comeback, Volume 3, which Kevin Herit Chill, who is in the chat, and also a good brother of ours and a great supporter of ours. He wrote the forward, and his BFF as well as my BF. She not only your BFF, Kevin Herit Chill, but
You know Dosha too.
yeah, Ladosha. Yeah, that's she's the one who actually connected us with Fatu Sangay, who is the owner and operator and CEO of the Gaia Journal Skills Academy that's in the Gambia region. So she connected us two together, and they are my family now. Her, Fatu, her husband, Alu. who's also acting principal at one of the schools. We're close. Omar Champion, who's also an associate and also works for the school. Madu, who used to work for the school, and her daughter as well. So a lot, and some other people that was the students. We actually got to meet the students when we did the first book. We actually, our book helped them raise money. They did they had to read the book, and then they had to write about what they read, and the person with the best survey would win a certain amount of money. So we had a first prize, second prize, and third prize, and it was a big coverage for the school. So the coverage got a lot of coverage from our book being over there, and then they're putting on this contest surrounding around the school and surrounded around our first volume, which led to our second volume. Ended up being in this, being over there in the schools. I think she has 3 schools over there in the Gambia area, or 2 in Gambia and 1 in Senegal. I can't remember, but those are our families. So and from that we created a partnership, the Mboka Family Connected Apparel, which I also have on right now. One of our designs is the
Okay, I think the internet connection is getting.
Dang, y'all. Uh, I went out. My computer died on me. But again, appreciate Sister Michelle Person for actually coming uh and letting us interview you. I hope y'all was able to learn. Uh, I hope the show was very informative. Please go out and support Michelle Person again. Her website is www.justlikeme presents.com, where you can find all of her various publications at. Um, he did the same. I didn't do the same thing to you, Chill. My mom came over here, man. But um, again, appreciate everybody for tuning in. We'll be back next week with another interview. We'll be interviewing Brother Jehudi, Ma'at, um, who is a member of the Seshuma Ani Metanetra, as well as one of the founding members of the formerly New Black Knowledge. And I think he's also a part of the Each One Teach One. They actually changed their name. So we'll be getting into all of his business, the various projects he have done, the various projects he may have been coming out. I said ETN. Oh, and like I said, if you want any of our apparel, please go to Family Connect Apparel, or just type in the Google search in Boca Family Connect Apparel that I have on the during the pandemic. Kofi Piesie Research Team made history hats and the shirts with the patch on the side, embroidery patches on the side. So if you want that or any other brand that we got on there, go check us out. We got a lot of stuff on there. We try to upload a new design that's created by us every day, and those brands represents us. So if you're looking for Dolce and Gabbana and Gucci and Poochie and Fucci and all that other that crazy stuff, don't that apparel online store is not for you. But if you're looking for something that identifies with you, that resonates with you, then go to that apparel shop and get that. Also, be on the lookout for Spirit Masters, a historical survey in the minds of African warrior scholars, Volume 4, which is coming in September. If you hadn't got my book, Beautiful Lessons about Kimoyo, that came out 2 months ago, please go get that. It is a great publication. I'm also working on the expanded version as we speak, so there'll be an expanded version coming out hopefully November the 25th. It'll have 3 new chapters in the book. The layout for the book will be changed different. There'll be more pictures in the book. Book will be a little bit more thicker. And there's just some chapters that I wanted to add that I didn't add that I'm going to add. So be looking out for the expanded version. Also be looking out for What SARS Taught Me by Herit, Shawn, Khalfani, a great book that is also coming your way, an informative book that we definitely need in these times of the pandemic, man. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Appreciate you, Brother Kevin Chill, for introducing me to our sister. And on that note, I said ETM Hotel in the beginning, which means bring forth peace. So now I'm gonna say Shemim Hotel, which means to depart in peace. So I'll see you next week, or we may see you tomorrow. I don't know. I may do something tomorrow. I may do something. Somebody wanted me to do something on. I may do something on who is Kofi Piesie Research Team. We was having a discussion last night on the powerful build that we had last night, and I kind of went into some stuff that people didn't even know about me, and I didn't get through. And some reason that the show ended abruptly. I don't know what happened. It just ended the show. So I got a lot of stuff to tell about my story. So I may come back and next tomorrow and talk about that. Maybe I don't know. We going through Hurricane Ida is coming our way, so we might be out of power and a lot of stuff. We may get a lot of damage this evening or early tomorrow when Ida touches down. But again, peace and Black African power. We appreciate y'all. And for the record, we is not a part of, we have packed our bags. We are not a part of the country's community anymore. We are a part of, you'll see us stating this a lot. I can't even, here it is, Independent Africa Academy. We are a part of the Independent African Academy community. We are a part of the Independent African Academy Committee. But again, on that note, we out. Peace. Appreciate y'all. Have a good day.